Hey there, it's Jon Fleischman with SoDoesItMatter.com, all California politics all the time. I wanted to do a quick video update on the decision out of Virginia's Supreme Court this morning. I wrote a longer update and analysis, which I sent out. Most of that analysis was reserved for our paid subscribers, but you'll get the gist of it from this video update. I will link my previous update below, or if you're watching it on YouTube, it'll be in the show notes. Basically, this morning, the Virginia Supreme Court, which was made up of a majority of Republican-appointed judges, voted, I think, on a party line vote 4-3 to overturn the new maps that had been drawn in the state of Virginia. To back it up just a little bit, after the election, the legislature in Virginia decided to push through a pretty hard partisan pro-Democrat gerrymander of the districts in the state. The effect of it was to create 4 new Democrat districts and blow up 4 existing Republican districts. So a pretty major shift in a fairly small delegation, at least compared to like the one we have in California. So the legislature put it on the ballot, and it passed narrowly by a vote of the voters just a few weeks ago. That having been said, apparently the plain letter of the Constitution says that what they did required going through the legislative process once. Then there needed to be a statewide election of legislators, and then it would have to run in another session one more time to then go on the ballot and go before the voters. Many states have these kinds of provisions to really kind of limit direct democracy and make it a little more difficult for voter-initiated or even legislative initiatives that change the Constitution or make major fundamental shifts. Anyways, the Supreme Court ruled, without weighing in on the efficacy of the maps themselves, that the process was flawed. They tossed it out. Well, obviously, that's a pretty big deal. So I had 2 observations here. One is the impact of this on the big sort that's taking place nationally. I was looking on the Cook Political Report, and they basically think that as a result of this action, Republicans are likely to gain 7 to 8 seats net right now. But if you add to it the recent Supreme Court decision that came out last week or the week before, the Calais decision that had as its nexus a local Louisiana redistricting case, the Supreme Court basically said that we're past a point where it could be justified that you're sorting congressional districts based on race under the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. And so because of that, it allows more partisan gerrymandering to take place, albeit it's late in the season and there's many states that won't be able to do it, but Republicans could pick up another few seats there. I also think some of these numbers are predicated on the Florida made a change in their maps and picked up 4 new seats. That's in the baked-in number, and that still has to go before the Florida Supreme Court, which kind of brings me to my second end of this analysis, which is that I think when you talk about especially a partisan issue like gerrymandering, the courts are clearly not above the politics, because it's worth noting that in Virginia, it was 4 Republican justices that were appointed by the by the Virginia legislature. In Virginia, governors don't nominate justices; it's all done by the legislature. So 4 out of the 7 are Republican, and it's those 4 that overturned the decision. And then back up to last November here in California, where Republicans, I think, made some very credible arguments in filings to the California Supreme Court during the time that the California legislature was putting Prop 50 on the ballot, making some very significant procedural objections that the process that was being used also violated the Constitution. And the Supreme Court in California, which is made up of 3 appointees of Governor Brown, 3 appointees of Gavin Newsom, so 6 out of the 7 justices are Democrats, they wouldn't even take up a hearing to hear the merits of the case being made by the Republicans. They just rejected out of hand twice attempts by Republicans in California to try to contest the lines. So then fast forward to Florida, that's an entire Supreme Court filled with nominees and serving justices that came from Republican governors. So I think the handicapping of this very political process tells me that the lines in Florida are going to get upheld. So just some lessons to be learned here. The bigger question is going to be what happens in the November elections for Congress, given everything that's going on. If you were to look at the size of the anticipated Democratic wave as of today, based on the president's popularity or lack thereof, based on historical trends that occur in mid-district elections in a in a second term of a president, it should be a pretty heavy shellacking of Republicans in the House. I think that they're estimating that Republicans could lose 20 or 30 seats, but that will be significantly mitigated by all of this, but it won't be enough. I think in order for Republicans to hold on to the House, we're also going to need some shifts in public opinion polling. I'm not sure how well that goes while the president is still engaged in the non-war war in Iran. I think that that's a very unpopular conflict, not only with Democrats, not only with independents, but with a lot of Republicans who I think were on board with blowing the crap out of the Ayatollah and going in there with a swift action, kind of like Venezuela style. But I don't think anybody has signed up for a long-term plan, and I'm not sure anybody really realized that there would be a de facto national gas tax for the war because the price of gas is going up. And so that's getting really old really quick. Anyways, that's what I've got for this analysis. Wanted to quickly share it, and we'll get it up, and take care. See ya.